a student who is bullied at school. His name is Groggy Saki, and his life changes when a god announces on the classroom loudspeaker that all the students will be transported to a new world where they will be heroes. The god tells everyone to gather into groups and gives everyone the power to see their own statuses, the ability to evaluate other people in a transport box. Seeing his own status, Seiichi is ashamed for all his attributes are at level 1 because it's weak. He has no friends. He's abandoned by all the group's god. Seeing Seiichi alone, goes there and gives him a surprise ability and sends him alone to another world. After being run over by a group of monkeys while hunting for a worm to eat, he finds a fruit from evolution and eats it. Even though the fruit is from evolution, nothing happens to him. Hiding in the bushes, the protagonist watches the monkeys that ran him over. Analyzing them, the boy sees that the monkeys are level 120. When the animals leave their place, Seiichi goes there and steals some fruit and begins to eat. Out of nowhere, a monkey attacks him by surprise and he can barely defend himself. Seiichi's lucky that the monkey died just by smelling its stench. After killing his first enemy, the protagonist receives some rewards such as food, the monkey's abilities, and even a guidebook that he can only raid because of the extra ability that God gave him. So the protagonist realizes that he's ready to evolve. It goes through the evolution, feeling enormous pain, but in the end at least he's skinny but still smelly. To evolve again, he just has to keep feeding himself with these fruits. The same way monkeys have a very high level, he can also level up past this way. Well, a few months go by and Seiichi continues to survive with the skills he gained by killing a monkey. His new enemy is a wolf of level 311 that he ends up killing with a kick. Among the rewards for killing the wolf, he gains the ability to use water magic, a dagger, and a map. Sushi's status goes up, and before you know it, he can go through a new evolution. Seiichi tries everything to defeat the enemy, but nothing works. So when he tries feed her using her stitch, the gorilla falls in love with him and takes him to her cave. Chapter 2. Inside, the gorilla named Seiichi spoils Seiichi in different ways, always saying she's his wife and always being repelled by the protagonist, who obviously doesn't want to have a relationship with an ape. Meanwhile, somewhere all the other students are in a kind of castle, training to face the Demon Lord in the cave. Seiichi proves to be a very feminine gorilla for an animal, while Seiichi is acquiring new skills daily to try to escape the trouble he has gotten himself into. When Seiichi goes out to look for fruits of evolution with the monkeys, the protagonist runs as fast as he can. Somehow the girl had noticed his movement and begins to chase him. Seiichi ends up using his instant movement skill to escape, so he ends up entering an unexplored cave. Inside the cave, it comes across a level 1500 Dark Lord. The ape-like monster calls Seiichi an insect and strikes him with a sword, but Surya appears and received this blow instead of her beloved. Seeing this, Seiichi is furious, so he attacks his enemy with his magic, but the monster manages to dodge it. Then Seiichi decides to mix his instantaneous movements with a sword strife, so he manages to kill the Dark Lord. In the end, the monster thanks him for being freed from this world after defeating the Demon Lord. Stacha remembers the monkey dying. Then in a very romantic scene, Seiichi kisses Saria. Out of nowhere, the monkey went through an evolution and turned into a beautiful girl. In the end, Seiichi went to claim the famous post-fight rewards, so he received more skills, went through a final evolution, and not only that, but he still received some rewards from the dungeon administrator, which were basically a dress for Saria, a helmet for Seiichi, a fruit crop from the evolution, and the most important, a trip out of the forest. Chapter 3. After these events, Seiichi and Saria head towards a town. Arriving in town without any identification, they're required to take a test and prove that they are not thieves. The town guard recommends that they both not visit the adventurous guild, but Seiichi doesn't follow the advice and goes to the door of the guilty spy. At that very moment, he sees a blonde girl in a costume whipping a fat man. Seeing that unbelievable scene, Seiichi tries to mess with Saria, but the guild master appears and Jackson both inside. There, Sushi and Saria are convinced to join the adventurous guild. While signing up for the guild, a group of men with mohawks arrive and call Seiichi outside. The protagonists believed they wanted to fight, but the truth is they wanted something else, and Seiichi was forced to flee. After many events, the two finally became official members of the guild. Now, the only thing they need to do is to perform a ranking test. It will perform their test as a very beautiful girl named Artoria. Believing that the main characters are weak, she takes them to perform simpler services. Surya was sent to help in an orphanage, and Seiichi received the mission to demolish a construction site and take a dog for a walk. Altria feels guilty since she's known to attract calamity whenever she gets close to someone. That person suffers or dies. While Artorio is crying, Sushi came out of the rubble. Seeing the guy alive, she tells him to be careful. After that, they go for a walk with a dog, which actually is a giant wolf. At the end of the day, they receive their payment and are invited by Artoria to stay at the same lodging as her. Chapter 4. The next day, Artoria asks Seiichi and Surya to collect common medicinal herbs. Surya is able to collect them easily, but Seiichi can only collect rare plants. But looking for the normal plants, Seiichi decides to ask for help to a group of demons who are planning to capture humans. Thinking she would be an easy prey, the demons try to capture him by calling an ogre to attack him. Unfortunately for the demons, Seiichi is already so powerful that not even a demon lord could defeat him. The second test of the day would be to hunt slimes. However, the terrain is full of teleport traps that demons have scattered. Dria ends up stepping on one, so she teleports with Seiichi and Surya to the dragon god's castle. Not knowing where they are, Artori gives them a guide stone in case they get separated. The stone helps them find their way to her. The stone turns red if the bearer of it is in danger. Everyone pledges not to get separated, but just at this moment, Altria steps into a trap that the group is separated on one side. Altria faces a mummy with all of its power on the other side. Seiichi and Siri are lost, for the stone only points to Wallace. While they're trying to regroup, Seiichi finds a treasure chest with arms and legs. For some reason, the chest tries to attack them, but it's too weak. By defeating the chest, Seiichi gets some cards, a ring and a book out of nowhere. The stone that Surya is guarding turns red. This means that somewhere in this castle she's in danger. The danger she was facing was only the dragon god, a being so strong that even Atria's best blows don't seem to even bother him. Just as the girl was about to be incinerated by the dragon, Sushi and Surya arrive in time to save her. Chapter 5. When she saw the stone turning red, he managed to get out of the labyrinth by breaking the walls, so he and Surya arrived in time to save Altria from incineration. Surya healed Artoria with some potions, and she began to face the dragon god first. The protagonist tried to use magic he already had against the dragon god, but it doesn't have much effect. Seiichi doesn't give up the fight, and again he acquires new techniques and defeats the very powerful enemy. The rewards for winning the fight this time were various magical and physical powers, even the dragon gem he received, and by eating it, Seiichi had all his stats increased and also managed to increase his level beyond the limit. Everyone manages to get back to Altria City using Seiichi's power. Back to the well-being, Altria apologizes and shows that her luck stats were minus 20,000. Because of this, several bad things happened to her and the people around her in the Adventures Guild. The most bizarre members were already preparing to go after their friends. Seeing them safe and sound, they're all relieved. Artoria, sad for all she believes she has caused, runs to the rubble and begins to cry. She looks for her, and when he finds her, he hugs her, after which she gives her a ring of misfortune. Seiichi explains to Altria that with this ring her bad luck will go from minus 20,000 to 40,000, and Seiichi promises to always protect her and stay with her. To Artoria, this seemed like a direct request for commandment, but Seiichi was just being nice in an exaggerated way. At the end of the day, Seiichi had to break his own promise. Chapter 6. At breakfast, Seiichi talks with Surya about Altria's strange behavior, and then they decide what they will do for the day. Surya will stay with the children at the orphanage, and he goes in search of information. Meanwhile, in another country, supreme authorities are thinking about using slave bracelets in those students and forcing them to train more. Back in the city of Archeria, Seiichi was in a library searching about the Dark Lord as no information seems reliable. Seiichi started to study magic. On the other side of town, Artori was talking to her friend Adriana about Seiichi. In this conversation, Adria discovers that she's in love and decides to propose to him. Meanwhile, Seiichi had taken a break from his students and had found a good restaurant to eat at. There, he makes a new friend named Ramsey. This friend and foreign to a woman the way he did is basically a marriage proposal. Randy advises Seiichi to stay with Sharia, and Altria Saku's decision was to undo this misunderstanding. Seiichi then goes to the orphanage to tell this to Surya, but on the way Altria finds him and kisses him, after which the girl declares herself to him. Sharia arrives at this point and asks Seiichi to accept Altria's request, so they form a trisol. Chapter 7. The next day at the guild leader suggestion, Seiichi goes in search of a horse using a map that his master has taken from his underwear. When he arrives at the indicated place, killer instead, an all-out horse race is about to begin, and that the champion of this race will win great prizes. As he searches for the ideal horse, Seiichi chooses a meal. Somehow he has acquired the ability to understand what the animal speaks, so he can tame it. The meal's name is Lulu. With its new mount, said she goes to participate in the Royal Cup. On the day of the competition, all his wives are there to cheer him on. The race begins, and for some reason Lilun is left behind. Seiichi tries to find out why. Lulu says she dreams so much about the fifth prize fish she didn't eat any of it. Stacy then gives Lulun one of his evolution fruits to motivate her, so the mule runs as fast as she can in the race. One of the participants tries to use ranked wolves to take down their enemies, but Lulund runs over the weak ones and stomps on the strongest wolf. Cease and Lulu win the Royal Cup, and even though Lulun wins, she's sad that she didn't get the fifth prize fish. She tries to comfort his meal, and out of nowhere the animal turns into a beautiful girl. Seeing a naked girl on top of Sashi or Toria, who's not as understanding as Surya, starts to get aggressive. Seiichi tries to explain, but Archeria only believes him when Siri explains that she has evolved from a monster into a beautiful human woman. After all this, Lulu is dragged off to put on clothes. At the same time, in another place, the daughter of the Demon Lord gathers all the commanders of the demon army and informs them about her decision to propose a truce with a human kingdom. They all agree except this demon pig. Back to the humans. After winning the Royal Cup, some Valkyries called Seiichi to retrieve the first place prize. The prize was to spend a day with a Valk race. There he sees the Valkyries training and then is called to participate in a mock fight with a captain of the Valk race. Meanwhile, all of Seiichi's old schoolmates have been sent to a special school to train hard and thick. Back at the Valkyries during the training, Seiichi manages to easily dodge all of the perfect Valkyrie blows. This shocks everyone, including himself. During the training, Sasha gained special abilities and defeats the perfect swordsman. After losing, Valkyrie asks Seiichi to be her master. Out of nowhere, everyone is warned that someone has invaded the castle and attacked the king. Chapter 9. All the Valkyries run to see what has happened. Stacy is attacked by a little girl and automatically defends himself by putting the girl to sleep. When the Valkyries return, Station tells him that the little girl had tried to assassinate the king. A Valkyrie named Lorna is assigned the mission of interrogating the little girl, and the rest of the group goes to the king. Everyone is worried because the little girl named Olga has hit the king with a curse sword which has the power to make the person hit sleep eternally. The brother of the Valkyrie Supreme has tried everything but nothing works. Seeing the king's situation, Seiichi tries to help him only with a strong will. Again he manages to create a broken ability, this time reversed the effect from eternal sleep to eternal health. The king was Ramsey, that friend Seiichi made in the restaurant. After being saved, he offered a reward and Stacy asked to allow him to train Luis in her Valkyries. At the end, Artoria admits that she's jealous of Seiichi had the other girls don't understand why that is, probably because case before anything they were animals. All the girls go to her Seiichi is, and there they meet Luis, leader of the Valkyries, and her blue-haired brother. The girls introduce themselves themselves as Seiichi's wife, girlfriend and servant. At the end of the day it is revealed that it was the king of the neighboring country who ordered the Aliga to attack King Ranchai. Chapter 10. Meanwhile Lorna was trying to torture Aliga, leaving the little girl hungry. Upon seeing the cruel torture method, the ex-fat Seiichi stops Lorna from continuing this. After feeding the girl, Louisa explains to the Seiichi that Aliga is one of the cat beasts who was taken from her own family, enslaved, and forced to become an assassin. Should she try to remove her color, a shock will kill her. Some things go on in the kingdom of Kaiser, such as the king treating the summoned heroes as disposable humans, an attack of this king, a fight and conversation between two friends, and Tall's back in Talbert Sushi again creates a new magic and manages to free Aliga from her slave collar. After the protagonist does this, Surya asks for the little girl to join their group. The little girl accepts and the king authorizes it, as he doesn't wish to punish a child. Chapter 11. In the demon realm, the pig counselor in Kaiser Helios mage send a horde of monster to the border of the country that Seiichi is in. Luis and all the Valkyries went to fight, and Seiichi stayed to take care of the king. A week after that, a desperate royal guard appears, saying that there is a legion of monsters coming out of the forest to attack Talbar, as the Valkyries are defending the country's borders. This problem is left for the adventurers in the city guards to deal with. Whether it not so normal attacks, the adventurous guild started to fight Seiichi, and the king just watch glasses demonstrate the power of his muscles. Whether the fight already seemed certain, a large horde of boss-level monsters arrive in the battle. Chapter 12. Seeing all his friends suffering, Seiichi decides to create a long-range spell to detonate all the monsters, but this spell cannot reach his friends on the battlefield. The protagonist ends up creating a spell that he names Judgment, and when he uses it, it hits all the demons at once, and after defeating all the bosses, Seiichi gained several extreme abilities. After all this, the man that I forget the name, I think it was this one, he invites Seiichi to teach at his academy. The protagonist says that he will only go if he can take his companions, and the guy accepts. The idea is to leave after the return of the Valkyries. While they don't return, Stacha takes the girls for a walk. When the Valkyries return, Louise even thinks about going with Seiichi to the Barber Academy, but she can't do that because her main duty is to protect the king. Species group pledges to return one day, so they say goodbye and leave towards the Barber Academy. Little did they know that the demon pig already had dark plans involving that place, and that Seiichi would probably find the people who abandoned him when he was a simple fat stinker of level 1 in all of his statistics. That's